He had a heart and was a good guy. She was a pop star who saved a child from drowning on stage. When they were together, Robert Urich and Heather Menzies had the best love story in Hollywood. People don't talk about how it ended, though. The cancer that broke their lives in two, the tragedies that happened right after each other, the death that happened exactly 15 years after the first one. But right down to the minute, these weren't just flukes. Robert and Heather were hurt in a way that is almost too evil to believe. It was said that Robert Urich had 15 TV shows, which was more than any other main man in history. That would have made him a hero on its own, but his story wasn't just about how much he did. He kept shocking people by going from being an action star to an emotional lead. After that, to a Broadway singer, and even to a well-known documentary show. Most artists are put in a box. Robert broke all the rules. He began as an Ohioan football player. She only had ability, beauty, and one very important friend, Burt Reynolds. Early on, Burt had faith in him and helped him make his first big shot. That shot came with SW8 in 1975. Police officer Jim Street was played by Robert. He was tough but likable. The show ended quickly. It wasn't shown again because it was too aggressive in 1976. But millions of people saw his face. He went from being a guy with promise to a star in the making all of a sudden. Then Vega showed up. Robert played the cool Las Vegas private eye Dan Tanner from 1978 to 1981. It wasn't just a hit, it took the world by storm. He went through the lighted streets in a red 1957 Ford Thunderbird with a smile and a suit. They solved crimes. By the way, that car took the place of a yellow Corvette that caught fire in the pilot. Like Robert, that red T-Bird became well known. 2 Golden Globes were given to him for the part. What's more, it made him a sign of how smooth, smart and talkative he was. He was the face of primetime action for a while. Urich didn't stop there though. He ruled TV for the next 30 years in a way that few others have ever done. 15 major parts from all kinds of genres. He played a dumb tennis pro in a soap opera where he did comedic work. He dealt with spying in Gavilan. In the mid-1990s, he even led a western called The Lazarus Man. He was in almost every movie from 1973 to 2001. And he wasn't just going easy. He always tried new things, changed gears, and took chances. He didn't want to be a one-note star. He planned to do everything. Then Spencer showed up to be hired. It wasn't just another puzzle show. From 1985 to 1988 it ran, and the state of Massachusetts got about $50 million, 0 cents from it. That much was spent to film in real life in Boston, which gave the show its raw, real feel. The winters were very harsh. Robert made it work even though money was tight. It was exciting when he worked with Avery Brooks, who played the tough and mysterious Hulk. There were no car races or gunfights on the show. It was about being honest, fair, and doing the right thing, even if it hurt. Fans really liked it. He later played Spencer in 4 made-for-TV movies, which showed that the role and Robert were still popular. But he did something no one saw coming. Just when they thought they knew him, he became the face of the National Geographic Explorer magazine. He was the host of the show from 1988 to 1995, when it moved between TBS, CNBC, and MSNBC. His voice filled the room with wonder as he talked about secrets in the deep sea and lost kingdoms. He really meant it, not just reading from a script. He got a Cable Ace Award in 1993 and an Emmy in 1992 for his work as the host of U-Boat's Terror on Our Shores. His work as host of On Assignment earned him another Cable Ace. These jobs weren't just for fun. These shows were serious and well-known. Robert also showed that he had ability. He would have been a hero even if he had stopped there. Still, there was one more act. Robert made his Broadway appearance in 2000 while he was still fighting synovial cell sarcoma, a rare and deadly cancer he had been fighting since 1996. From January 5 to February 13, he played Billy Flynn in Chicago. He had played the part on tour in Detroit and Washington, D.C., but this was the big stage. He did a great job at the Schubert Theater. Aside from his performance, people were shocked by the fact that he could really sing. There was also something else. After the fact, his wife said that he had a twinkle in his eye when he walked out on stage. He was so bright, even though he was tired and getting chemo. He was born in Toronto on December 3, 1949, to Scottish parents who had left Britain after World War II because it was in such bad shape. Her dad was an artist who was having a hard time and wanted to start over. But what they found in Canada was hard work. They were poor, had nowhere to live, and were holding on to hope. Heather learned something from her hard life as an immigrant that Hollywood couldn't teach her: grit. Heather had lived in 4 towns in 2 countries by the time she was 14: Washington, D.C., Miami, London, and Southern California. When her dad's art business failed, the family would pack up and move again. Heather had to learn how to quickly make friends, change schools, and get used to new languages. It was very tiring. Even though she was unstable, it made her flexible. She already knew how to change herself, which would help her in the future. Heather went to a casting call when she was 14 years old and had never been acting before. It would change her life. A lot of girls tried out for The Sound of Music. A lot of them had papers, managers, and years of training. Heather only had 1 lost TV show on her record, but she did have something else. She was real. Her charm really stood out. She was cast right away as Louisa von Trapp. It wasn't just posh singing in the Alps for the shoot. One scary part almost turned the movie into a tragedy. The rowboat flipped over during the scene. Kim Carruth, who played Gretel and is 5 years old, couldn't swim. She was played by Heather. She went down 3 times. There were cameras rolling. Julie Andrews took a bad fall. Some people on the crew froze, but there Heather didn't. She dove in and pulled Kim up, saving her life. Kim drank so much water that she got sick and has been afraid of water ever since. The scene stayed in the movie though. What you see on the screen is real. Heather saving her co-star. The Sound of Music was a huge hit when it came out in theaters on March 2, 1965. It won 5 Oscars and by 1966 was the most successful movie of all time. It sold 288 million tickets and made $286 million, 0 cents, around the world. It ran away with the box office in 29 countries. That was it, Heather Menzies. A long time ago, everyone knew about the choir girl from an immigrant family. Heather didn't want to be stuck in time like sweet little Louisa, even though she was only 15. In 1973, she did something very bad. In a piece called Tender Trap, she stood naked for Playboy. The name was a fun nod to her past work as a musician, but the message was clear. She was no longer a child. People were shocked. She had been the good girl in a family movie 8 years before this. She was now in charge of how people saw her, even if it made fans who still saw her as Louisa mad. In the same year, she was in one of the wackiest scary movies of the decade. She played Christina, the crazy scientist's daughter who turns people into snakes. It was strange, didn't cost much, and had real snakes in it. Heather didn't move though. Some people said she was cute and sweet. She didn't want to fade away, even in such a strange role. In 1977, she got a big TV part in Logan's Run, where she played Jessica 6, in a sci-fi world where people were being hunted at 30. There were only 14 episodes of the show, but Heather stood out because of her revealing outfit and daring personality. Executives at CBS got scared at one point and said she looked too racy for a kids' show. With tights and pink underwear added, her outfit had to be changed, but Heather wouldn't budge. She was now this person. She had her biggest career break when she was cast in Piranha, a cult horror hit directed by the great B-movie director Roger Corman in 1978. The movie made $16 million, 0 cents, but it cost just over $700,000, 0 cents. Steven Spielberg liked it so much that he sued, but Universal dropped the suit without a fuss. Heather played Maggie McKeown, a brave skip tracker who set the story in motion. She did well with a group full of horror movie veterans, and her role in Piranha helped make it a classic. In an ad for canned hash, Robert Urich and Heather Menzies met while acting like they were married. That sounds silly, right? But that scene on the set in 1974 changed their lives for good. It had been 2 years since Heather Menzies' marriage ended, and she was 25 years old and trying to move on with her life. Robert Urich was 28 years old, in great shape and ready to take Hollywood by storm. They were acting like a married couple in a simple Libby's ad, and something just clicked. It was more than just playing. The link felt so real that it didn't go away when the camera stopped running. On that one day, acting like they were in love quickly turned into something much more serious. It wasn't just a job. It began a love story that will last 27 years. It wasn't like Robert was a failing performer either. His big break was almost here. The next year, in 1975, S.W. Wade made him famous all over the United States when it aired on TV. Fans loved him as Officer Jim Street, the tough guy with a heart. But it wasn't a mistake. Robert had put in a lot of hard work to change his look. He went from 180 pounds to 220 pounds of strong strength just to look like an action hero. He looked good, had charm, and had good friends. Burt Reynolds, one of them, even helped him get his big break. Reynolds talked director Aaron Spelling into giving Robert a chance. After one tryout, Spelling was bored. Robert Urich was on his way right away. At the same time, Heather was going through her own changing point. She was really well known at one point. She played Louise Von Trapp in The Sound of Music when she was only 15 years old. That movie is one of the most famous of all time. But being a kid star doesn't last forever. It was hard for her to make the change from kid star to serious actor. By the time she met Robert, she was also getting over a marriage that had ended 4 years earlier when she was only 20. Robert had been married before too. His first wife was Barbara Rucker, whom he met in college. The end of that marriage was quiet, but it made him wary. That's why he married Heather just over a year after meeting her, which seemed so sudden and maybe even risky. On November 21, 1975, they got married. Quick, of course, but everyone who knew them said the same thing. It seemed right. Just a few weeks after meeting Heather, Robert told his friends that he was sure she was the one. It wasn't talk about Hollywood either, it was true. They fell in love quickly, but it wasn't just a fling. It wasn't often that people can connect in that way, mostly in show business. They were a real Hollywood power couple who didn't need any trouble when they were together. Heather left behind a movie. Robert was becoming a TV star. He got the lead part in Vagot in 1978. It was a stylish crime thriller that ran for 3 years and nominated him for 2 Golden Globes. That's when they really became well known, not just on their own, but also as a pair. Photographers really liked them. They were then put on magazine covers, but it wasn't just because they looked good together. It was how they looked at each other. They didn't sell a name, they were just in love. And Robert wasn't afraid to show it. He did everything he could to bring Heather into his life from the start. In 3 episodes of Vigo, she was seen. After some time, he got her a part in Spencer for Hugger. It wasn't just about giving her parts, though. It was about him telling about his life. It was their success that he did well. Robert fully supported Heather when she chose to take a break from acting to spend more time with her family. In a field where pride generally wins, that kind of help was almost unheard of. Heather found out she was pregnant in 1975, not long after she got married. It wasn't even like she and Robert were trying, and the news made them happy. Heather later said, "We were over the moon, but their happiness didn't last. She lost the child. It broke my heart so badly, and it didn't stop there." Heather lost the baby over and over again. After each other, there were 3 babies and 1 loss. Each one hurt them a little more. What started out as hope quickly turned into a pattern of sadness. Friends began to worry that the pair might not make it through the mental toll. All of this was going on at the same time that both of their jobs were taking off. For them, life in Hollywood was great, but behind the scenes, everything was going wrong. Something had to change after the 3rd loss. Robert and Heather had to make a tough choice. Taking in, it wasn't an easy fix. For a long time, they had to wait on a list and go through a lot of steps. But in the end, in 1978, they had their first child, Ryan. Emily came next in 1980, and Allison came a long time after that in 1998, 20 years. That wasn't a mistake. They were going to give each kid the attention they needed. Ryan turned into a doctor, focused on illnesses that spread. He once said, "I became a doctor because I couldn't help my dad, but maybe I can help someone else." Emily became a nurse and now works in an Ontario emergency room. Their kids all found their own way to get better. It could be because they saw their dad fight so hard to stay alive. Heather gave up something of her own. She was a growing star. Lisa in Logan's Run and Louisa in The Sound of Music. She was booked, busy and well-known. But when they got a dog, she got quiet. Hollywood didn't think women would just leave like that. She did though. She only played a few parts after 1979, a few shows on Vega, a guest spot on TJ Hooker, and a movie called Endangered Species. After that, not much else. She gave it up so she could give her kids a safe place to live. Robert also did something different. He wasn't the type of dad who left his kids with nannies while he worked on set. He made time for it, even though he was one of the busiest stars on TV, having been in 15 shows over the course of 30 years. Spencer for Hire had a clause in his contract that let him fly across the country whenever Emily had to go to the doctor. In the 1980 years, that didn't happen very often, if ever. It wasn't enough for him to just be there for his kids. He also had to connect with them. Robert didn't yell at Ryan when he did something wrong. He sat down next to him on the floor and asked what was going on. He didn't want to punish, just understand. And just 2 days before he died, Robert still got on the floor to play with his younger daughter, Allison, even though the cancer had taken away most of his power. But in August 1996, everything changed. Robert went to the doctor for a routine checkup, but they found something wrong. The cancer was synovial sarcoma, which is very uncommon and quickly spreads to soft tissues around the joints. People under 30 are most likely to have it. Robert was 49 years old. He had cancer in his groin. The punishment would be very harsh. Chemo, radiation, and a number of surgeries. They couldn't have picked a worse time. The Lazarus Man was his new show, and he was in the best shape of his life. The news hurt Hollywood a lot. It was going well with the show, and work was already underway on a second season. But just a few weeks after the news came out, Castle Rock Entertainment stopped the show. The move caught everyone by surprise. 20 of the 22 shows had already been shown. 2 shows that were done were left on the shelf. The decision was even more shocking because TNT had already agreed to keep the show going. He started getting chemotherapy and radiation in July 1996, and it was very hard for him for 6 months. As punishment, he had to go to the hospital every morning at 5:45 a.m. and be pumped full of potassium bicarbonate and drugs that made him feel less sick. Chemotherapy took place every day for 4 hours for 9 days. Robert said that by the 6th day, the poisons in the pool were burning through his blood. He tried to take his mind off of the pain and sickness, but it was impossible. It was even stronger than before. Tens of millions of rats beam, which is thousands of times stronger than a regular X-ray, at the cancer in his groin, while being careful not to damage anything else. He had no hair left by February 1997. He was so sick that he could hardly breathe. He was fighting more than cancer. He was fighting the cure to stay alive. After that, a miracle took place. Surgeons went in October 1997 to cut out what was left of the growth, but there was nothing inside him when they opened him up. There was no growth, cancer, or even dead tissue. The sickness didn't seem to be there at all. Robert was shocked. He said, "I began to wonder if I had ever had it." Doctors told him that he had a 5% chance of relapsing. There was real hope for the first time in years. In 1998, Robert was told he no longer had cancer. He was chosen to speak for the American Cancer Society across the country. He told everyone that it was possible because that's what he agreed to do with God. He went to work again. He became a part of Love Boat, The Next Wave, and 2 years later, a dream came true. When I played Billy Flynn on Broadway in Chicago, I felt like the nightmare was finally over. Robert and Heather, his wife, thought they had done well. Doctors told them that 95% of people would get better, so they started making plans for the future. He gave all $125,000, 0 cents that he won on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, to help fight cancer. He and Heather set up the Urich Fund to help the University of Michigan study sarcoma. He told people all over the country to get checked early. He even started to write An Extraordinary Life, his autobiography. It looked like the story might end with a win for once, but it didn't. The cancer came back in November 2001. There were new lumps. Docs thought a new drug would be able to handle it at first, but they were wrong. When it came back, the disease was much faster, stronger, and more dangerous. The first growth was in one place. This one was all over the place. There was no treatment, no cure, and no more options. Robert was almost done with his last show. the NBC comedy Emerald. His playing career came to an end when the cancer started its last attack. He and Heather thought everything was fine. After putting their lives back together, everything was falling apart again. They knew how the story would end this time though. Robert Urich died at Los Robles Regional Medical Center in California on April 16, 2002 at 7:22 p.m. 55. Heather and Ryan, 24, Emily, 22, and Allison, 4, who they adopted, were with him. He had only been in the hospital a few days before for lung troubles. He worked on his autobiography right up until the end, still wanting to leave something behind. His last TV movie, Night of the Wolf, played on national TV the night before he died. Heather lost her husband when she was 52 years old. They had been married for 27 years. She was there for him during every surgery, round of chemo, and scary moment. They had miscarriages and lost children. With the help of adoption, they had grown their family. She had to face the world by herself now. She was very sad, but she was also very strong. After 3 days, almost 1,000 people came to North Hollywood's St. Charles Bar-Mola Church to say goodbye. Stars like Gavin MacLeod, Tom Selleck, and Tony Danza came to honor him. He told the news media that it's sad because of Bob and who he was. These kinds of people only show up when they have real friends. There is a black and white picture of Robert outside with flowers all around it. The person who had been in 15 TV shows at one point held the world record, but no one forgot about him. Heather kept going. They had been having fun together before Robert died. She made it bigger now, though. The Robert Urich Foundation was started by her. She wanted something more hands-on. More events mean more people know about it and more money for study. I get a lot of energy from leading the foundation, she said. It's a lot like every wonderful day I had with Robert. She took care of their kids. She worked hard. She used her pain to do something. One of the most violent and dangerous types of brain cancer known to medicine is glioblastoma multiforme. In November 2017, Heather Menzies Urich, who had danced on screen as Louisa Von Trapp in The Sound of Music, was told she had it. Was 68, and the worst part, this took place exactly 15 years after her husband, star Robert Urich, died of cancer in 2002. Heather has worked hard to fight cancer for the past 15 years through the Robert Urich Foundation to raise money and help patients. She did everything she could to make sure other families didn't have to go through what hers had. Now it was her turn. She was no longer able to fight the cancer. The news came just 4 weeks before she died. There wasn't time to get ready or say goodbye for a long time. Robert had been sick with cancer for 6 years. They had hope and time because of his fight. In fact, Heather's fall was the opposite. Glioblastoma goes away quickly, it takes and spreads quickly. Ryan Urich, her son, told reporters that her health got worse almost right away after the diagnosis. There was no time for treatment and no clinical studies at the last minute. There was no way for her to set up the kind of help she had spent her whole life giving to others. This was very hard to watch for people who knew her. Heather did more than just act. She danced, she had kids, and she threw herself into every part of life. But after only a few days, her speech got softer. She lost her drive and she disappeared. Some of her Hollywood friends had known her for decades and barely had time to say goodbye. She passed away the night before Christmas. The exact time was 7:22 p.m. on December 24, 2017. Her 3 children were with her at the family home in Frankfort, Ontario. In the end, Ryan said she wasn't hurt. She had had enough of fighting what was going to happen for almost 4 weeks. The place felt peaceful and important at the same time. On Christmas Eve, people gather with their families to stay warm and hold on to hope. But for them, it was the moment they lost her for good. It was a scary reminder of Robert's death. He passed away on April 16, 2002. Heather died exactly 15 years and 8 months after that. They were aware of the pattern in their losses and more pain was on the way. In September 2016, a little more than a year ago, Charmian Carr, who played Liesel, another Von Trapp sister, was no longer there. Fans of the movie were very sad. That little girl who used to sing So Long Farewell had given her last bow. Ryan's words were honest and very close to home. He didn't just say that she had died. He told me everything that happened, right down to the time. He said his mom wasn't hurting, but she knew when it was time to let go because she had lived her life with so much intensity and love. That's what she chose. She didn't fight or be afraid when she took her last breath. She did it with honor. Ryan also made sure that people knew who she really was, not just Louisa Von Trapp. In her life, she had danced, acted, fought, and spent her time helping other people. She never lost that ease, not even at the end.